Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. I have just got back from TennoCon last night. What a crazy show, by the way. But I woke up at 11 this morning, and as I expected, the Valkyr Heirloom has finally released, even though it was teased to us like months ago. And even though I am working on a longer Valkyr perfected video, which will be coming out soon, I thought that I would do this, sort of like preview of the builds, just to, take advantage of the fact that everyone is super hype about this skin. Yeah. I don't I don't know what to say, y'all. I genuinely do not know what to say. The thing is that even if we like compare it to Ember, it's like, yo, there's like one consistent thing between all of these heirloom frames. And yeah. I mean, let's be real though. She fashions very, very pretty. Here's just one that I started working on before I, decided to just use the other one that I had because I really, really liked it. And yeah, these heirloom skins always look fantastic, and nobody is surprised to see that. But holy bro, like why? Why does she have a thong on? Okay. Anyways, if you're here to actually get a Valkyr build because, well, her heirloom just came out, I have quite the build available for you. But, to make sure that you do still watch that perfected episode, I'm only going to show you one of them. But to give you a quick rundown of Valkyr if you are unaware of how she works post rework, well, her passive was entirely changed. You can now see in the bottom right of your screen, you have a 0% melee damage counter. And this passive gets built up by hitting enemies with your melee, by killing them, by getting finishers, and all that good stuff. And it stacks up to 300%. Now, this is just a passive 300% base damage boost, which is like having a condition overload with 5 additional status effects active for free, which is obviously very powerful. But the really, really cool part about this passive, and what makes it honestly so good, is that when you are over 150% rage, if you happen to die, you just don't die. And you get 5 seconds of invulnerability that you are allowed to, again, rebuild that rage meter up to 150%. And then, if you just are just killing enemies and shit, you will easily rebuild that 150% in the 5 seconds of invulnerability that you have. And it makes Valkyr one of the easiest warframes to survive in the entire game because she can't die. Like she can't. It's impossible if you're playing actively in the slightest. Besides that though, her one is actually a really great mobility tool now. It's kind of like a grappling hook. It's funny that in the Spider Warframe update, we also got what is kind of like a better grappler Warframe. So yeah, she's like pseudo Valkyr with this. The augment allows you to have some fantastic mobility because it makes it not cost any energy while you're in the air. And it also gives you a little bit of parkour velocity. But more importantly, in my opinion, is that you can now use it on enemies where it is actually now a really, really good grouping tool. So yeah, as you saw right there, I targeted one enemy, Valkyr slid herself in, and at the same time, she pulled every enemy within range in and then hit them all with a melee strike, which if you saw, did build my rage immediately up above 150%. So yeah, you'll never die, and now you have a fantastic mobility tool, and also just like grouping. And grouping on a melee frame is really, really good, and it is especially good on Valkyr for reasons I will explain in a moment. Besides Ripline, her 2 has stayed pretty much the same, just giving you attack speed and armor, but now you can cast it while you are moving, and it also benefits your allies who are in affinity range, and if they happen to leave your range or die or something, all they need to do is re-enter it to regain the buff, which just makes it a easier ability to use as a support frame. Not that many people play Valkyr for that, but if you are running her in public missions because you want to show off, well, you will be benefiting your allies with way more attack speed and way more armor, which is very, very appreciated. Now, paralysis is typically your subsume ability, which is why on my other 2 configs, I do have it taken off, but I will cover it momentarily. You cast it and enemies nearby will just get damage vulnerability, which is, pretty simple. It is a lot better to use now because like Warcry, you can cast it while moving, but I just find that the extra damage that it provides is really not needed. Its augment isn't too bad, but it's kind of, overshadowed by Ripline, but it's not terrible. It's easily the worst one of the 3, and having a good helmet slot in modern day Warframe is not a bad thing. What we all here for though is Hysteria. Now, Hysteria no longer makes you immortal, but the fact that she has her passive, which does make her immortal, and also so much HP, so much armor, and Warcry will give you even more armor, which Hysteria, if you can look at the bottom there, will triple the armor that Warcry gives you, means that Valkyr with, like a good build gets around, I don't know, 200,000 EHP, and then if you add in some other things, she can get around 2.6 million EHP. Enemies on the steel path do at most 500,000 damage a shot, and her claws have lifesteal. So, Valkyr is, yeah. Let me cover what actually happens when you go into Hysteria though. You will get access to her Exalted weapon, the Exalted Talons, and these are just, you know, like an Exalted melee that are like really strong. If I bring all these enemies a little bit closer together so I can build up my stacks a little bit quicker, you will start to see that we have hit red crit territory. And with some of my stacks now, yeah, she is she's cutting shit up. The Talons have honestly ridiculous base stats, which is why I'm hitting red crits right now without the use of something like Wrathful Advance. Because at the 50% base critical chance that they have, it means you only need to use Blood Rush and what, Galvanized Steel, I think it is, to get yourself all the way up to 325%. Yeah. I'm just using Galvanized Steel, and I'm just using Blood Rush, and I'm getting all the way up to 325% critical chance, which is ridiculous. As you can see though, Talons have an abysmal status chance, which makes them not a good melee influence weapon, which honestly, most people will not mind because we are all tired of the melee influence meta. But the raw damage on the Talons is just honestly absolutely ridiculous, which is why we are building entirely for raw damage here with melee exposure, as much critical damage as we can get, some good range so that the Talons don't feel like shit, and then Primed Fever Strike with, you know, Condition Overload and Berserker Fury for more attack speed on top of the bonus that Warcry gives you already. The main goal here is really to just enter Hysteria and then be able to, you know, swing around the entire map, cut enemies up, never let go of your E key. It's that kind of vibe, and it does succeed at doing that very, very well. There are a couple synergies with outside things here. Number one, Opportunity's Reach. You might be wondering on a critical damage build, why am I not using Dreamer's Wrath? Well, it is because you can actually stat stick the Tennokai mods onto an Exalted weapon by just having them equipped on your normal melee. To my knowledge, this only works if you equip Opportunity's Reach in your Exilus. I could be wrong, but when you do that, all of the mods on your normal melee, well, Tennokai ones, will carry over to your Exalted weapon. So yeah, we benefit from all of these by only having one actually equipped, which is pretty strong. Conditioned Overload will give us a ton more base damage on top of her passive, for which we will use a Diriga companion, but I will talk about that in a moment. The reason we use Primed Fever Strike here and not, you know, like an elemental combo like Viral or Corrosive is because, one, this is the only primed elemental mod and it gives us the most damage to multiply with our other stats, but we're also using melee exposure here. Melee exposure will give us just a shit ton of corrosive damage for casting abilities, and seeing as we will be casting Ripline very often to get around the map and also group enemies, well, you will have a 240% bonus from this ability active pretty much always, which, seeing as elemental damage is multiplicative with base damage, that's very, very strong. The other reason is that if I swap over to our normal build, we are using Nourish. Now, Nourish gives us a ton of viral damage, specifically 107%, not counting for any strength scaling we might get in the mission. And that means that if we had viral modded on here, it would just be adding with it, so it doesn't really, you know, make sense to do that. We're not benefiting from, you know, like an increased damage multiplier to factions by having more of it. But by having only Toxin on, it actually allows us to use Archon Continuity. Now, I know that I said that Valkyr is not a good status warframe, so the use that you will see from this mod is honestly limited. It won't really do that much, but it is better than running a combo element and then having to, you know, lose something like Gladiator Might, because critical damage on a raw damage build is way, way stronger, especially when you consider that we already have 165% plus 240% plus an increasing 107% of elemental damage. We don't need more of it. More critical damage is definitely the way to go, which is why I also have 5 Violet Archon Shards for increased critical damage. And remember that this bonus gets doubled when your energy is over 500, so the final multiplier on our Talons is way higher than 10.5, and I also don't even have a companion with Tenacious Bond on for another 1.2. The raw damage here is absolutely insane. But to cover the Valkyr build, starting off with how we actually get over 500 energy for the shard bonus, that is Arcane Battery. Valkyr has enough base armor that even without any modded on, using Battery will put her over 500. But the thing is that this bonus is not snapshot at the start of a mission, it updates itself actively. So when you use Warcry and then you use Hysteria, if I actually go and do it, right now look at our energy, we have a cap of 525. Activating Hysteria and then activating Warcry brings our energy bonus all the way up to plus 1000 because of the ridiculous amount of armor that the ability now gives us. And yeah, we have 1200 max energy now. So energy economy here is also stupid easy. And even though we have 45% efficiency, we do have Nourish with Equilibrium, which will multiply all of our health orb drops, which come very easily from a Diriga. We have no problem with energy. We get the bonus from the Violet Shards, and it just is super easy. High Strength is really just to scale the bonus from Warcry and Nourish, the base damage benefit from Hysteria also being appreciated. And then the ability also does scale Lifesteal 1-to-1 with ability strength. So with every hit, you will just immediately regain any HP you lost. And honestly, I've never ever actually triggered the death gate on her passive in a mission where I am actually playing, so that should speak to you just how strong she is. Sure, I have not taken her to level cap, but I've never once needed to use her death gate because she just has so much goddamn EHP, but even if I did, it's there to save me. Catalyzing might seem like a very weird mod to use here, and admittedly, you can just as easily swap this one out for adaptation, but the reason I'm using catalyzing here is because every cast of Ripline at 38.75 energy will immediately refill Valkyr's shields, and seeing as I'm spamming this all the time, it is an added layer of defense that is really nice. But if you don't care about this, you could definitely use adaptation. You could also just use more ability strength here to get your bonuses even higher, throw in something like constitution so you need to cast less. It is really up to you, but I just like this here. Change it out if you would like. High range is obviously for grouping on Ripline, and then corrosive projection in the aura might seem weird, but you need to remember that with enemies having their armor capped out at 2700, taking away almost 20% of that will lower their damage reduction from I think about 90 to 80%. And for all intents and purposes, let's say that an enemy has 100 health and without corrosive projection, they have their full armor and they have 90% damage reduction. If you hit them for 100, you would actually do 90 damage. But by using corrosive projection, you will lower their damage resist from 90 to 80%. And that means that a hit that would normally do 10 damage is now doing 20 damage. And I don't know if you know how to do math, but that looks like a damage double to me. So using this mod will double your damage against enemies with armor, which is way stronger than what, 18% initially looks like. Hysterical Assault is definitely, like not needed here. I just think it's really fun. If you are in your fourth ability and then you like look at an enemy and then attack them, and by look at them, I mean you actually like, you typically when you ADS with a melee, it just blocks. But when you have this one on, you can actually like look at an enemy, and then if you attack, you will just zoom right at them. And the range on this is honestly ridiculous. The utility here, when you do have Ripline, and it also groups enemies for you, is like low. Damn. They just got absolutely cooked. But I do think it's fun because it does also give you more parkour and sprint speed. And 117 meter range is kind of goofy, even if the range on this one is 176 meters. It's just like flipping through the entire map just because she's so mad. Like, that's hilarious. Now, I do have one other build, but I am going to save that for the other video. The other build is focused on having all of your abilities active for the entire mission by using some of her augments and truly allowing you to just hold down E for as long as you want. This build is definitely more of an active play style. It's how I prefer to play her. So if you want something that is, really just way more comfy than this one, both are very good, but the other one has way less upkeep, well, then you are going to want to check out my Valkyr Perfected video, which will be coming out in a couple of days. But with all that being said, if I get myself some Xmas units in here, Steel Path level 185s, I activate all my buffs, and we just start, like trying to cook these guys up, you will see that our raw damage begins to absolutely skyrocket now that we have hit maximum stats. Yes, you will tend to hit in the millions on some of the lower HP enemies in the game, but even if this looks pretty damn strong to me, and I would be surprised if it didn't to you. Let's get a normal group of enemies in here. Oh, they all died immediately. What a surprise is that? Hey y'all, just because I forgot to show you the companion, here is the build on Dariga. It is just built to use Arc Coil to zap enemies with a ton of elements from Momentous and Manifold. Tenacious Bond gives us more critical damage, and then Synth Deconstruct will cause all of those enemies to have an increased chance to drop a health orb, which in turn will be converted into energy by equilibrium over on our Valkyr build. Seismic Bond also gives us additional efficiency just for having a channeled ability active when our companion deals damage, which it will do with a Burst Laser Prime, which is modded for all of these elements to get onto our Arc Coil. The reason we don't have viral is because Nourish will buff our companion's weapon and give us viral, corrosive, magnetic, radiation, and heat, so we will be getting a ton more damage from condition overload because of our Dariga, and also having our energy managed very well, and also having a great energy economy and more critical damage. It is, pretty broken. Also, because I'm realizing I forgot to mention it earlier, the reason that the grouping on Valkyr from Ripline is so good is because her talons have a 1.0 follow through. This means that every enemy you hit will be taking the full amount of damage from every swing, whereas other melees would have something like 0.7 or 0.6, and that means that you deal full damage on the first swing, but then the enemy after that would only take 70% of the damage, and the enemy after that would only take 70% of the 70%. So when you hit a big group, you do way less damage in total. but with a 1.0 follow through, you deal full damage the whole time. And that is why talons are one of the best, like, you know, group up enemies and then slash them all to one hit them, because 1.0 follow through is kind of broken. Enjoy the gameplay. I'm going to get back to working on Valkyr Perfected, because now that we have this skin, well, okay, I'm gonna get fucking TOS. I will see y'all later. Peace.